What's up, dudes? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be finishing the 92 F1 build. So everything that needs to be done on this truck will be done in this video. And we're going to start at the doors, getting the speakers in and the door panels on. So off camera, I've gone ahead and gotten the mirrors in, and I spent a lot of time getting fresh new window seals within this whole door. And then I also painted these right here for the vent window. So all that is fresh. And then we got some black door handles right here. So these are going to be really nice. Everything new on the truck. And then the key lock cylinders, Christian painted these in black steelite just to match, and that looks really good. So you can see we have kind of a blackout theme going on in the door here. And then on the inside, here's where the door speaker is going to go. We are running, I think it's a 5.5 inch speaker for this. And the problem with it, which we're going to have to solve first, is it doesn't want to sit flat in here, and I had that same problem on my daily driver. And you can see there's already different mounting holes in here from probably the previous owner had an aftermarket speaker in here. But we're gonna go ahead, take an angle grinder and just kind of shave off a layer so that speaker can sit flat. Another option could be running the spacer, but we're just gonna get it to sit flat in there. That's the option that we chose to go. It's gonna be quicker. We don't have to go somewhere and buy that part. So that's gonna be the first thing we have to do. And once that's on, we'll be able to put some fresh door panels on here, which we have, and I will show you once we get to that point because they are pretty rad. But yeah, I'm gonna have to spend a little bit of time getting everything covered so we're not getting grind sparks everywhere and tearing up leather, paint, windows, anything. So all this has to get covered, and then we'll get to cutting that out. So here's the speakers that we're gonna be putting in the truck. The head unit we have is a Rockford Fosgate Marine unit. It's for like their boats, and then we're gonna match out some Rockford Fosgate Power Series speakers. Should be pretty good. Got a big old magnet on there. 75 watt RMS. I don't know if that's high because the RMS, it's 150 peak, 75 RMS. The RMS on the sub in my truck is like 1,000, but it's obviously a sub, so it's going to draw a lot more. So we'll see how loud these are once we get them in the truck. All right, well, we got things kind of covered up. I'm going to be standing right here, so I'm not going to worry about sparks getting right here because I'll be blocking that, but whole interior is blocked off, windows covered. Got tape especially right here so grind sparks don't fly up under. So I think we'll be good. So obviously going to be using these guys while we're grinding away, but I'm going to mark it first so I know where I'm cutting and I know when to stop once I get to a certain point. These, we're going to be using these outside holes, so I'm just going to mark. I'm going to probably go right in between just for now. Start pretty much moderate. So I got things marked out just with that Sharpie, just guesstimate, that's where we're gonna start at. You can see it doesn't wanna sit flat in there. There's some wiggle room. So this thing needs to get trimmed so this thing can sit all the way flat. Down. Let's see here. Make any progress? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That might just work right there how it is. I think it will. That thing sits in there exactly how it's supposed to be. Dang, I don't even have to go anymore. Yeah, sits flat all the way around. That's it right there. So we pulled the connector out of the inside of the truck. What I noticed that I didn't notice before is when Eric wired this, he labeled these ground. So you know the black is ground. Even though black is usually ground, that's a nice reassurance. And then my dad went and picked up these connectors right here to put on there to be able to get onto the speaker. So that's what we're going to do right now. Just cut these off and rewire them real quick. So we're just going to cut them. These are 16 gauge wire. There's one. And there's two. So we have our fresh wires. Now we just need to have two connectors. Just like that. All right, so we have both the connectors wired onto there. Now we can put this back in the truck and get the speaker connected and all screwed in, and then the sound system will be done for the front of the truck. Come on. Well, the truck's playing music, so that's pretty cool. I could only play music for a few seconds because of copyright things, but you get the point. Both speakers are working, which means that we can now put the door panels on, which is what's kind of hiding in this box here. So I'll pull them out so you guys can see them real quick. First white one in a minute. Heck yeah, brother. So these are the door panels that we have for the truck. These are made by, I believe it's Coverlay, and we got them through Rock Auto or 1A Auto. It's one of the two. I'll put it up on the screen here. But to our door, shipped and everything. These are right around $450, so not bad for a full set of panels. There are a few things to note. This is a nice, soft, suede almost feel. I don't know if this is what it was like originally on the trucks when they first came out, because I wasn't even born, but this feels really good. On Christian's truck, he's running these same panels. He got these pulled off and wrapped in tweed, but that's just something that the owner of his truck did. And then down here for your little light, your little door light, you have to save these off the old door panels because I don't think you can buy these new. No one remakes them, so keep those off your old door panels and you'll have to retrofit it in here. And one other thing to note is that they don't include the little cubby right here, the little pocket, so just know about that when you're getting these. But besides that, these are a really good quality door panel that are going to work good. Before I forget, this piece right here also is molded in. It's not a trim piece like it is on the current trucks. And they do include, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, a little seal. The weather seal back here is already on there, so you don't have to worry about that. But let's get these puppies installed on the truck because I really want to see it. When we wired the truck, we chose not to get the powered mirrors wired, so we're just going to leave this plug basically open right now, and I've zip tied it to the door so this thing's not flying around in there when we're driving the truck. And then like I said before, we're not running that light for the door panel, so that is just tied over here as well, so that's not flying around. So everything in the door is ready for the door panel. We don't have the covers for the switches, so we'll have to get those at some other point, but we can still push this up through the door panel once we have the panel on here, so that's exactly what we're going to do. All right, handles on. So we got the door panels pretty much all the way in. We are missing the switch covers. We're gonna have to go get these at a junkyard because you can't get those new, and the old ones probably got thrown away, so we don't have them. Besides that, everything's on here. There was an issue on this side right here. It didn't want to sit back all the way to the window, so, and trimming this wouldn't let it sit back, so I already thought about that, but that's not the issue. And up here, we didn't install the screw on this side, but I tried on the other side. That screw's not going to be the right one because it just popped right through the door panel, so we're gonna have to get the correct screws for those. But besides that, the panels are on, and do they look good. My dad and I just got back from going to a few different junkyards down in the Otay area, and we only got luck with one truck, so we got a lot of what we needed, but there is one piece that we still need, so let's just hop into it. Here is, right here, we have a switch guard for the passenger door, and this thing's in pretty good condition. Everything's intact. Just the lettering's a little bit gone, so what I'm thinking we might do is eventually paint this with some kind of plastic paint and then get a stencil and redo the lettering, and these will pop, or just leave them black, something. But the driver one, this is the only one we could find, and as you can see, this one's pretty damaged, but we might be able to run this temporarily in the truck until we can find another one. These right here are the seals for the door handles. When we pulled the old ones off, they must have gotten thrown away because I put these on and they are currently missing, so now we have these. I can pull that handle back off and put them on, but that's not going to happen before we go testing, so we'll do that at another time. These are for the door panel as well. Like I was saying at the start of this video, we're not running the lights, partially because we don't have the correct connectors wired, but if I want to rewire them, here we have the stuff to do it, so that might happen in the future, but again, not before we go testing. One other thing we got is gonna be for your feet when you get in the truck, these little guards. So I've just cleaned these up with some soapy water, and they're already starting to come back to life, so with some SC1 these things should really be popping. That's kind of where we're at right now. I'm gonna throw a lot of this on the truck, at least the switch guards and those little like foot guards. I don't even know what you would call that, but that's what we're gonna do. My dad just went to get 5 gallons of fuel for the truck, so this thing should be loading up on the trailer pretty soon here. Well. Got that little cover on there. Honestly, it doesn't look bad, even it not being painted or anything. It looks really good on there. Still want to get these really bad because that's just throwing everything off, but I got that little kicker panel, foot panel, whatever you want to call it, on here. One unfortunate thing is that the previous owner of this truck, he was like a carpenter or something, so even in the door panels before, there was like big wood screws like through everything. So he did that here too, and it's a bigger hole than the stock hardware, so I'm gonna have to do something about that. I'm just gonna leave it with no screw in there for now. But dang, this thing's starting to come together. We took the truck out testing this last weekend and it performed really well. For being right out of the box, it surprised all of us. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely go check it out. It is worthwhile. But now that we have had the truck out, we've spotted a few issues that we need to get resolved. One of those is going to be with the rear spring rate. On these trucks, once you go to a 4-link, you have no leaf spring obviously, so to set the ride height on these, you're adjusting the preload on the coilover. And we just had to add way too much preload for this truck to sit level, and that's a sign of the truck being undersprung. So we have to get stiffer springs that are rated at more weight. So we're talking with Sonny over at Down South Motorsports, and he's getting us hooked up with that. That is where we bought all the shocks for this truck as well. And the results of it being having too much preload are when you go to hit a jump or something, the rear end's going to want to buck since there's so much force that wants to shoot out. So getting a stiffer spring is going to help with that and make the truck ride a lot better. Another issue we were having was up front. If you were watching in the video, it looked like the truck had bump steer, which is just when the tire turns throughout the travel because the steering's not set up right. But I took everything apart, shocks out, made a little piece that I'll show you in a second to see if the truck has bump steer throughout the travel, and it doesn't, which was kind of surprising, but we've kind of figured out what the bump steer was caused by, and I'll show you that right now. I know it's kind of a mess over here, so I'm gonna try and explain this the best I can. This is the piece that I've made, and it just utilizes two wheel studs right here with a tube sleeve over it, and it's welded to this 1-inch square tube right here. And this tube is 40 inches wide with a 1/2-inch slit in each side, so this is what you would call a plumb bob, and plumb bob to plumb bob, it's 39 inches, and that's the same size as our Toyo tire. So this is basically acting as a tire and allows you to see what the steering's doing throughout the travel. So to check for bump steer, you would put this thing at full droop. We just let it sit on the limit strap because that's what full droop is. And we'll set up the plumb bob so it's just barely sitting on the ground, mark it in the front and in the rear, and then we used a level in this case and drew just a little line on each side so we can see what the steering's at. And then we also checked it at ride height, set the plumb bobs right, marked it, and then at full bump as well. The reason we go through that whole process is to see if the lines are off, and if they are, that means you have bump steer. So back here we have a pretty tight grouping of lines, and up here it's a little bit bigger, so there's some very slight bump steer in this this tie rod or this side of the truck, and it's very close. There's very minimal bump steer, and on this side there is pretty much none. So you can see tight grouping back here, tight grouping up here, pretty much identical. Those lines correlate with each other, so this is ride height, bump, and droop, and back here it's the same order. It's not like this is ride height, this is bump, this is droop. So they're all in line with each other and it's all correct. So there's basically no bump steer on this side and very, very small amount on this side. So I don't even know if I'm gonna adjust that out, because the way this swing set system works, this is dual swing set steering. So if I do start messing with this swinger, to get this bump steer out, it's gonna mess with the other side a little bit. So I don't even know if it's worth the time just to get that small amount out. My dad pointed out he held this and he was able to shake it back and forth, so there's some play in there. And when he was doing that, I was looking, and this swinger right here, it was moving side to side. So I tightened all the bolts on the swinger and the mount for it. There was still some movement, but it wasn't as bad as it was, and he could still shake it though. So there was another issue that we were having, and I thought about it, and I kind of determined it was these heims right here, and I shook it and had my brother hold his finger on the heim, and you could feel that the ball in the cup was moving. So the heims that were on this, they were old heims, they weren't anything good. They had some serious play in them. So what we did is called Tyler over at Kartek and had him send us out some new FK rod ends, which are basically the best you can get for these trucks. So here are some of the old heims off of the truck, and here is what is going to go on there. So this is what came off of the beam. This is a Skyjacker filled heim, and the way you can tell it's filled is by seeing this right here. So what that means is there's a plastic, I don't know what kind of plastic or rubber it is, but it lines the inside of this, And once that gets deformed, it won't want to reform. So once this ball gets loose in the cup, you're basically done. So that's coming off the truck because it's already messed up and they didn't last that long. And this is what was on the radius arms. These, you can tell, are super similar, but that thing is loose in there. And if you hold the ball and the cup, you can actually move the ball in there. So there's play, not only like this, but you can move it in there, which is no good. So we're moving to these. Again, FK rod ends, made in the USA, I like that. And the threads on these are a little bit longer, so you're gonna get a little bit more strength there. And I can't even move this ball in the cup. The thing is super rigid. I had to put the misalignments in and take a punch and whack it with a hammer just to get this thing to budge a little bit to line up to the holes on the beam. So this thing's gonna last a while. Heims are one of those things that aren't gonna last forever. You're gonna have to replace them every so often. But getting a nicer Heim like this can mean the difference of having to replace the Heims every season compared to every few trips. So that's why we went with the nicer ones. They're gonna last longer and it's gonna be less work for us. And one thing I have to say is put some anti-seize on here on the threads when you're putting it in. Because if you don't, this thing can get stuck in there and you're gonna have a hell of a time getting it out. So definitely put some anti-seize on there. I've seen some people fight with it before and I don't want to go through that, and I don't want to make you guys go through that, so I'm just giving you that warning. We don't use anything special anti-seize wise. We just have this Permatex stuff from Ace and it seemed to work pretty well. So definitely use that on your Heims. So that's what I'm going to be working on today, is getting all the Heims replaced in the front end on the radius arms and beams. I actually started school today, so video production, I'm going to try and keep it at 1 video per week. That's always been my goal. But just know that I'm in school now, so that's going to be my main priority. So if I miss a week or it's a few days late, just know that's why. I do want to put out content. That's what I love doing. So I'm always going to try and have that as a high priority as well.
It's been a couple days since anything's been filmed. My brother is back at school full time now, but I have been tinkering around just on a couple little things on the truck. I did go ahead and get the front and rear fenders down to Dallas at San Diego Line-X to get all that stuff wrapped up. I should have those fenders back either Monday or Tuesday of next week, so I should have them pretty quick. But as you can see, the rear of the truck is at full bump right now, and there's no shocks on the rear. And the reason for that is because when we went testing, we've never had this fuel cell filled up, even remotely close to full. And when we went to go fill it up for that first kind of test drive and shakedown that we did, we put 30 gallons in it out of a total of 50, and it squatted the absolute crap out of the back of this truck. And there was a bunch of preload on the shocks already, so we knew the spring rates on the rear coilovers weren't right. So we went ahead, I went down to Down South Motorsports, and Sonny over there got me all set up with a new set of springs, as well as the All German Motorsports aluminum spring dividers. So these King shocks come with a plastic spring divider, and what happens with those over time is they end up having so much tension on them that they'll kind of just kill themselves and break apart. So going to something like this, there's less friction because they actually want to spin around inside of here and let the springs spin, because when springs collapse, they actually do turn a little bit on the ends. So this will allow everything to kind of spin freely, and it's just overall a way better setup. So super pumped on this. Our spring rate before was a 300-pound spring over a 400-pound spring, and now we're sitting at a 400-pound upper spring and a 550 lower spring. So it's gonna change the rate up quite a bit. It's gonna affect that the way this thing sits, and hopefully the ride height will be a whole lot better, especially once we go ahead and put 50 gallons of gas in this truck. It won't be squatting like crazy. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these coilovers put on right now, and then we'll be able to get the bypass put on, and then we can start setting ride height. So now that the rear shocks are back on the truck, another thing that we wanted to address before the next trip was the safety side of things. So we got set up with some fire extinguishers and some fire extinguisher mounts from Tyler over at Kartek. I got one of these all set up right here so you can kind of see what it looks like with the mount on it. Everything's held on with hose clamps, so it's 2 hose clamps to the fire extinguisher itself, and then 2 hose clamps go to whatever you're going to be mounting the mount off of. So in this case, all these are going to be mounted off of tubes. We have 2 5-pound fire extinguishers that are going to be going off the down tubes on the back of the truck, and then 1 10-pound fire extinguisher that's going to be going inside of the cab. I've already went ahead and pulled these mounts apart and got everything coated in Steelit, so they're looking good. They come raw when you first get them, so I went ahead, pulled all the bolts out of them, pulled the pins, got everything apart and sprayed those, as well as I got some heat shrink on all the hose clamps that are needed to get these on the truck. So now I can go ahead and get these mounted where they need to go.
Christian went ahead and got both the fire tanks mounted on the back of the truck, and it came out looking super good. I didn't know if I'd like the red on the truck, but it kind of ties in a red, white, and blue theme, so nothing to complain about there. That's all good. These units are kind of big. I think Christian said they're a 5-pound tank, so they're not small, but we'd rather have it bigger than smaller, if you know what I'm saying. I do really like these Kartek mounts. It just requires you to pull a pin right here, and then it pivots off this back dowel. You can slide it out, and you have your fire tank ready to use. God forbid you have to use this, but it'd be easy to if you have to. And then putting it in is just the reverse. You have this that you need to slide over the dowel. So you get it in there, pivot it forward, and then bam. Just put the pin in. It's all locked in. You can see there's a bit of play in here, but there's nothing you can really do about it. Down here, it's just 2 sandwich plates, and you can't squeeze those any tighter, else it's gonna be hard to get that fire extinguisher in and out. So we're just gonna have to live with that. We got all the glass back from Line-X today, and it came out looking really killer. We went with Line-X on the top of the bedside, and then we went with a crazy design on the front. And the reason for this is the front tires kick off a lot of rocks that will usually chip the paint on this part of the bedside. So to prevent that, we went with Line-X there. We also did Line-X on the inside as well, just to cover up that ugly fiberglass. So that just cleans things up. And the Line-X will also make the fiberglass a little bit more rigid because it's just another rubber layer on there. So these things won't flex as much on the truck. The AutoFab glass is already really thick, but with that, these things really aren't going to move very much. So that's why we went with that on the inside. I'm going to focus on getting these rear bedsides on right now. I'm going to wait on the front until we get the doors finally aligned to where they need to be, and then the front glass will go on. But these can go on now, so that's what I'm going to be doing. And then we're also going to get the taillights and everything in as well. So the rear of the truck should be pretty much complete after this, besides a spare tire. So I'm excited to get these on. Let's get started. The reason I had to drill the Line-X out of all these holes is to be able to fit this fender washer in there. So this extruded part has to be able to sit flat inside. So bam, clicks in. You can see it's sitting flat on there, everything's good. So that's why I had to do that. And anytime you have Line-X in a bolt hole and the bolt doesn't fit, you just gotta take a drill and drill it back out and everything will be fine. Now we gotta mount the bedside mounts onto the truck. Really easy. We just set it up with 2 bolts to mount onto the truck, and then Eric wired it with 1 connector, so everything's really easy there. Just a matter of putting it together. Dummy, you don't want to see the nut on the back side. Bedside mounts were designed to come off super easily. That's why it was only 2 bolts and 1 connector to put this thing on. So once the glass is mounted on all these mounting points, to get the whole thing off, it's just those 2 bolts, that connector, and then these 2 bolts up here to pull that one out. Ready? Okay, I'm in. Yeah, you got the harder side. The bedsides are completely mounted now, and you can see how they look on the truck. And ooh, what's that? Got the fenders mounted on here too. Christian, what are you doing right now?
Oh, rushing to get things done because apparently we're going to the desert tomorrow. So.
Whoa, whoa, really? So now we got a big checklist to get done. I got the fenders on earlier. Christian's doing hood pins right now so we can get the hood mounted. We have a few other things to get done as well. The crossovers on the rear coilovers, since we have new springs, those have to get set so there's no coil bind in the rear. And then we have a few other things to go over on the front end. Since we had that apart, we'll go back through with thread checker, mark all that. And the exhaust bolts as well are loose, so I'm going to put red Loctite on those, get those all cinched down. And then should be able to go have some fun tomorrow. Well, we're going out there for a race and to watch our buddy testing, so that should be a video of its own. But for now, we're just going to be grinding stuff off the list, which is kind of good because it means we're getting stuff done on the truck.
Yeah, but it's kind of short notice, so
yeah.
It kind of sucks. I got about an hour, maybe, to get this truck on the trailer, which is not a lot of time.
Well, you're not alone. It's not just you. So
well, welding is kind of just me, but...
Well, yeah, so you're going to TIG those, right?
Yeah.
So the hood pins will be fresh. The reason they're getting changed is just because the hood didn't line up the way we wanted it to. It was a little bit hard to get on. So now everything will line up perfectly and it'll be easy to get on and off.
You know what I'm talking about, dude? Got that handled real quick. Ready to go have some fun. It looks so good. Oh my god. I'll end this video with a little bit of a walk around, but Christian and I are planning on doing a legitimate walk around on the truck so you can get all the details of it in one video. So expect that in the future. We had a really good time testing this truck this last weekend. It worked really well. That video is out on the channel, so if you haven't seen it, make sure to go watch it after this one. The point of this video was not to finish this truck, because if you have one, or if you've ever had one, you know these things are really never finished and there's always something you can be doing. So the point of this video was to complete it, get all the body panels on there, and the last of the major things done. So for the most part, the truck is finished, but there's a few things that we need to tinker on and just fine tune. And there's still a few little parts that we have to add on there, but it's complete. Make sure you guys are liking, commenting, subscribing, post notifications. Anything you guys can be doing to help the channel grow helps us and helps us do more projects like this. So thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.